From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the African and Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress. I'm Mary Jane Deeb, Chief of the Division, and I'm delighted to see you all here in what is definitely going to be a very exciting program. As most of you already know, our division is made up of 3 sections: the African section, the Near East section, and the Hebraic section. We're responsible for materials from 78 different countries in the Near East, Central Asia, the Caucasus, as well as from the entire continent of Africa. Our Hebraica and Judaica collections come from all over the world. And we serve these materials to patrons here in our reading room and organize programs, exhibits, conferences, and other activities that highlight these collections and that inform our patrons about the countries and the cultures these publications come from. The librarians in this division, as well as in a number of others, are themselves published scholars with a deep knowledge of the language and cultures of the countries for which they're responsible. I do not believe that this division has ever done what we're about to do today, which is to celebrate the birth of a new country, South Sudan. It's already a year old. We are doing this with a panel of specialists in African affairs from the Library of Congress and with a representative of this new nation who will speak about the unique cultural heritage of his country. Whilst everyone in Washington is discussing the political and economic implications of the emergence of South Sudan, we here in the African Middle East Division focus on the resources available in the library's collections that will enable scholars now and in the future to write about this country in a new light. Our panel consists of 5 speakers. Dr. Angel Baptiste is the area specialist for West Africa in Sub-Saharan Africa. Hannibal Goitam, who's here, who's a foreign law specialist at the Law Library of Congress. Abby Oyewole, co-chair at the United Nations Association of African Affairs Committee. John Doe, director of the John Doe Foundation. And Marita Harper, the area specialist for Francophone West Africa and Central Africa, and who's also the specialist on South Sudan. So now we'll have Dr. Angel Baptiste, who will who will talk about our collections. And I want to say, yes, at the end of the presentation, we invite you to come to our conference room to view a display of publications, some of which may exist nowhere else but at the Library of Congress. Okay, so don't go at the end of the presentation. But anyway, Marita will invite you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Excuse me. I, too, welcome you to the African and Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress, and particularly to this program that's being sponsored in collaboration with the United Nations Alumni Association. This particular program, this particular gathering today, myself and my colleagues, we view this as a bit of an exploratory meeting. We're interested in the information resources of the South Sudan. We're interested in the preservation of the information resources of the South Sudan. But we particularly have one great concern. And I'd first like to just read to you an excerpt from one of the news magazines. This is from a Voice of America news publication. In a steaming hot tent in South Sudan's capital, papers that have survived rats, termites, and almost 5 decades of civil war burst out of overstuffed sacks and litter the floor between mountains of files that contain a new nation's entire history. These historical documents continue to suffer because of a lack of funding. Literally, this is almost 100 years of South Sudanese history rotting in a tent. It is a race against time before creatures and climate swallow South Sudan's past. This is our real concern here today, and in thinking of the destruction of this history, we here at the Library of Congress, we decided to take a look and assess the collections that we hold here at the Library of Congress. And we do this in terms of knowing what collections we have available. But we've also found in cases such as the South Sudan, generally we are one of the major libraries that are called upon to reconstruct a country's history. And so what I would like to do today is just give you a sampling of some of the types of materials that are here in the library's collections. Geographically, South Sudan is not part of the Sudan-Sahel region, forming as it does part of sub-Saharan Africa. Its inclusion in Sudan is due to the southward expansion of Ottoman Egypt in the 19th century, and its consequent inclusion in modest Sudan, Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, and the Republic of Sudan during the period 1885 to 2011. The initial events of the First Sudanese Civil War occurred in 1955 and ended with the signing of the Addis Ababa Agreement in 1972. The Second Sudanese War began in 1983. With the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, the Second Civil War ended in 2005. On July 9, 2011, the Republic of South Sudan declared independence, resulting in the most significant redrawing of the map of Africa since decolonization. State building and nation building processes, as well as new chapters in the historical and cultural development of South Sudan are now beginning. One of the decisive factors in the historical development of South Sudan has been its geographic isolation from other centers of civilization. In ancient times, South Sudan fell outside the influence of Egyptian, Greek, Persian, and Roman empires, and it was virtually untouched by the advance of Islamic empires. This isolation allowed its people to retain indigenous African social, cultural, political, and religious heritage and institutions. Most of the peoples living in the South Sudan today are descended from the people of the ancient kingdom of Kush. Major groups include the Dinka, the Nuer, the Bari, the Azande, and the Shulak. The library's collections on the South Sudan span 3 major historical periods: 19th century Turco-Egyptian rule and the modest state, South Sudan under Anglo-Egyptian rule, or as a de facto British colony, and the conflict in the southern Sudan after independence up to the present. Holdings include materials that are in English and other European languages, as well as in Arabic and Turkish languages. Highlighting the library's collections, one can find published accounts by Arab, Turkish, and European explorers and travelers in search of the source of the White Nile. Notable examples of this include the lake regions of Central Africa, a picture of exploration by Sir Richard Francis Burton, Journal of the Discovery of the Source of the Nile by John Henning Speke, the Albert Nyanza, Great Basin of the Nile and Explorations of the Nile Sources by Sir Samuel White Baker, and Far Away Up the Nile by John Millis, English artist and travel writer. The records and proceedings of Britain's Royal Geographic Society should also be singled out. This early description and travel literature, including diaries, letters, diplomatic dispatches, commercial documents, provides an indispensable background for an understanding of the present conditions of the South Sudanese peoples. In addition to historical information, 19th century travel literature on the southern Sudan region included detailed ethnographic descriptions, such as the classic account of Henry Stanley, Through the Dark Continent, or the source of the Nile around the Great Lakes of Equatorial Africa and down the Livingston River to the Atlantic Ocean, and that of American poet and traveler Bayard Taylor, A Journey to Central Africa, or Life and Landscapes from Egypt to the Negro Kingdoms of the White Nile. Ethnographic surveys by professional anthropologists in the library's collection include the pioneering work, Pagan Tribes of the Nilotic Sudan by Charles and Brenda Seligman, The Shilluk People by Dietrich Westermann, and the classic studies of the Nuer, the Azandi, and other ethnic groups of the southern Sudan by Sir Edward Evans Pritchard. Early explorers, missionaries, and European administrators also contributed to the study of Nilotic languages of South Sudan. In addition, the library holds the periodical Sudan Notes and Records, which was established in 1918 by the British administration of the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, and it contains major sources for articles on southern Sudanese languages and ethnology. Most prominent among the library's holdings are the extensive materials that document key events in the history of southern Sudan during the periods of foreign rule. Of particular interest to scholars are the library's rich holdings of official documents and correspondence concerning the governorships of Sir Samuel Baker, Major General Charles George Gordon, Iman Pasha, and other colonial administrators. Additionally, the library holds the manuscript records of Charles Shelong, an American soldier who served as Chief of Staff to General Charles Gordon in South Sudan, or Southern Sudan at that time. His personal papers are also complemented by his books, Central Africa, Naked Truths of Naked People, The Three Prophets, and his autobiography, My Life on Three Continents. Narrative accounts of the origins, development, and overthrow of the Mahdist state in the Sudan are well covered in a number of historical studies, including the major works of British Administrator Sir Francis Reginald Wingate, who served as Governor General in the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan period. The library holds his books, Mahdism and the Egyptian Sudan, 10 Years Captivity in the Mahdi's Camp, and the Fire and Sword in the Sudan. One also finds accounts of Lord Horatio Herbert Kitchener's reconquest of the modest Sudan. Examples include the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan by Sir Harold A. McMichael, the 6-volume illustrated Cassell's History of the War in the Sudan by James Grant, A History of Southern Sudan by Richard Gray, and Winston Churchill's work, The River War, which describes his experiences as a British Army officer during the Modest War. Slavery has been a centuries-old feature of society in southern Sudan. The library holds a number of publications on what has been known as the trade in black ivory. Examples include The Story of El Zubar Pasha, Slaver and Sultan, as told by himself to Mr. H.C. Jackson of the Sudan Civil Service. Important documents relating to the slave trade in southern Sudan can also be found in British government parliamentary papers, Foreign Office papers, Her Majesty's Stationery Office papers, War Office Intelligence Division papers, and in papers and reports of the British and Foreign Anti-Slavery Society. For studies of the United States' reaction to reports about the slave trade in the Nile Valley during the late 19th century, the library holds U.S. consular reports and American newspapers, which are invaluable as source materials. The library's collections also chronicle the history of Christian missionary activities in southern Sudan from the 19th century to recent studies of missionary activity in the region. The Church and Missionary Society archive on microfilm, for example, includes important records of the activities of southern Sudanese missions. Accounts of the American Presbyterian missions are also available. Dempsey's Mission on the Nile recounts missionary life in the southern Sudan and gives firsthand information about the religious and social customs of the Shulak people. The work of Anglican missionary Bishop Arthur Leonard Kitching are documented in the book From Darkness to Light, a study of pioneer missionary work in the Upper Nile. The library's collections on the Anglo-Egyptian period consist of a rich body of materials, documenting Britain's southern policy and native administration in the southern Sudan region, including political memoirs by officers of the Sudan governments, official diplomatic correspondence, reports by colonial administrators. Equally important are holdings of British government publications such as legislative proceedings and parliamentary papers, colonial and foreign office reports, and investigatory commission reports. British newspapers also provide invaluable research materials on the political history of southern Sudan. Researchers can also find a selection of government publications issued during the period that the region was governed as an autonomous region. For example, the library holds the annual reports on the administration of the Sudan, the 1947 proceedings of the Juba Conference on the political development of the southern Sudan, and the weekly digest of the proceedings of the People's Regional Assembly, Southern Region, Sudan. The library's collections on South Sudan's post-colonial history of conflict and recent history, again, includes a vast body of original primary source documents, as well as historically important political ephemera produced by Southern Sudanese political parties and organizations. Significant holdings here include pamphlets published by the Southern Sudan Students Union, the Southern Sudan Liberation Front, the Sudanese People Liberation Movement, and the Sudanese People's Liberation Army, and the Anya, the Southern Guerrilla Military Organization. The library also holds rare periodical titles, such as the London-based Southern Sudan Association's Grass Curtain magazine, and the Now Mirror, published by the Ministry for Southern Affairs. The library holds important statements and speeches by major political leaders, such as Joseph Lagu, founder and leader of the Sudanese rebel group, Joseph Udoho, founding member of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement, and William Ding, one of the founders of the Sudan African National Union. Additionally, the library holds a number of the important writings of the late Dr. John Garang, leader and founder of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement and the Sudan Liberation Army, and the former president of the government of South Sudan. The works of noted scholar and diplomat Dr. Francis Deng, now South Sudan ambassador to the UN, are also available. For research on South Sudan's social and economic conditions, the library's collections provide invaluable primary source materials, including project reports, assessment studies by government, consultancy groups, non-governmental organizations, and by United Nations and other international organizations working in the South Sudan region. These documents cover a range of thematic issues. For example, institution building activities, the state of agriculture, wildlife conservation, manpower needs, the situation of women and children, food aid and famine relief operations, refugee resettlement, and geological studies and mineral exploitation. Social and economic statistical data can be found here in the library, and a number of South Sudan country, topographical, and thematic maps are also available. We invite you to visit us here in the African section and get an even and also get an in-depth look at our collections firsthand. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Hannibal Goitom. I work with the Law Library of Congress, and the reason I'm here is because South Sudan is one of the countries that I cover. I'll just tell you a little bit about the Law Library and the services we provide and how South Sudan fits into all that. We were established in 1832 by an act of Congress to help Congress as well as the Supreme Court. Since then, we've expanded our resources as well as our services. And now we have about 3 million volumes, 60% of which is on foreign jurisdictions. We are required by law to collect primary as well as secondary sources from various jurisdictions around the world. We have primary legal resources from about 240 different jurisdictions. Now, obviously, there are no 240 countries in the world, but our collections include materials from countries that don't exist anymore, like the USSR, as well as jurisdictions that aren't considered countries, like Taiwan or Palestine. Over 60,000 of our materials are considered rare collections, rare materials, because they were issued before 1800. The services that the Law Library provides includes research and reference services to the U.S. Congress, our primary customer, as well as the U.S. judiciary, as well as the executive branch. We also provide reference assistance to private patrons. We have a staff of about 15 attorneys with training in foreign jurisdictions as well as in the U.S. That work in GLERC, which is the Global Legal research center within the Library of Congress. And our job is to receive inquiries on legal issues from around the world, be it an adoption matter that interests Congress in Nigeria or investment laws of South Sudan. We would process the inquiries. To just give you an idea, in 2011, we worked on around 1,300 plus requests from both Congress, executive agencies, as well as private requesters. My responsibility is to cover 20 African jurisdictions, including South Sudan. We have divided Africa into three sections: Arabic-speaking African countries, French-speaking African countries, and countries that we call English-speaking countries. It's not entirely accurate because countries like Ethiopia and a lot of other jurisdictions that are categorized as English-speaking aren't really English-speaking, but we say that because they publish their laws in English. The attorneys that do these requests, that do research on various jurisdictions around the world, also are considered the recommending officers for collection development. So our job also involves identifying and recommending materials for collection. For African jurisdictions, we collect materials through two field offices that we have in Cairo as well as in Nairobi. We also have vendors that collect materials for us from some West African countries, and in some jurisdictions we try to use local representatives. So that's how we've started collecting materials from South Sudan. Our Egypt office is now in the process of collecting materials from South Sudan issued between 2005 through 2011, as well as laws that were issued since then. The National Assembly of South Sudan is issuing a lot of laws, and we plan to collect all of them. One of the areas of law that generates a lot of interest from our patrons and that results in a lot of inquiries for us is customary law issues. And for that particular issue, we are in luck for South Sudan because, as I said, we collect materials from jurisdictions that haven't yet been born, and we have collected a lot of materials for South Sudan over the years. Just before I came here, I just did a quick search of customary law materials that we might have on South Sudan, and just for fun, I tried to check one of the big ethnic groups, the Dinka ethnic group, and I found a few materials. Some of them I'll just recite outline of Dinka customary laws in a book that was issued in 1977, Dinka marriage and cattle transfers, 1978, a book issued in 1986, a book issued in 1987. These were materials that we found that were published long before South Sudan became independent. One of the things that makes this important is the South Sudan Constitution says customary law is going to be a source of legislation. One of the sources of legislation listed in Article 5 of the South Sudan Constitution is going to be customary law. Not only is customary law going to inspire legislation that's being issued by the National Assembly, but communities in Africa, and including South Sudan, have used customary law to govern their affairs for a long time. So a lot of issues that come to us on these subjects, we are able to respond because we have already collected sufficient materials. What we're lacking in is collecting primary sources issued by their National Assembly as of independence, and we're working to get materials on that. So far, we've tried to create research help guides for the jurisdictions that we cover, including South Sudan. I'll show you what we have done here. We have a page for every jurisdiction that we cover, the Guide to Law Online. This is a guide to help researchers. It includes quick links to resources on South Sudan, the executive branch, the judiciary, as well as the legislative branch. So the government of South Sudan has a website, so you'll have a link that will take you to the South Sudan government, and there you will find laws that have so far been issued by the country, But this is not always complete, but it's a research assistance for anyone interested to do online research. In terms of resources in the law library, we have various resources that we use to share the 3 million plus materials that we have. One of them is the Global Legal Monitor. This is a publication of the law library which summarizes legal developments around the world, be it laws that were issued or judgments that were issued by courts, and we just summarize those and make them available online. So this is one of the things to watch for legal developments around the world. We also have a blog that we use for the same purpose. In Custodia Legis, we've used this this publication is also used as a way of helping our customers keep up with the changes that are happening around the world, the same way as the Global Legal Monitor. Our website also includes research materials. Our website also includes reports on in-depth reports on various jurisdictions and laws of different countries. So in terms of interest that's been generated on South Sudan laws, so far I've received a few requests on South Sudan. The last 2 requests that I've worked on involve issues that have to do with Dinka customary law and issues that have to do with the new citizenship law that South Sudan is implementing, and how the regulation that was issued in terms of for purpose of issuing citizenship ID cards was being implemented, and as more and more laws are issued in South Sudan, and more requests will come, and we'll try to develop our collection, and hopefully we'll be able to answer questions. That's it from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abi Oyewole, and I volunteer for the United Nations Association of the National Capital Area. I'm a co-chair for the African Affairs Committee, and I'm here today to give you just a brief intro on the UN, the United Nations Association, and the UN's mission in South Sudan. I will keep it very brief in the interest of time so that I can allow more time for John and for Marita. The UN was founded in 1945 after the Second World War. Its main purposes are to keep peace throughout the world, develop friendly relations among nations, help nations work together to improve the lives of poor people, to conquer hunger, disease, and illiteracy, and to encourage respect for human rights and freedoms. The United Nations Association of the National Capital Area was founded in 1952 and is one of the oldest and largest divisions of the UN Association of the United States of America. It works to build public knowledge, strengthen UN-US relations, and aid the UN in achieving its goals through advocacy, education, outreach, and networking. The United Nations mission in the Republic of South Sudan began last year, 2011, when the nation was born. And the UN's mission in South Sudan is to support peace and foster long-term state building and economic development, support the government of the Republic of South Sudan in exercising its responsibilities for conflict prevention, mitigation, and resolution and protection of civilians. It also supports the government of the Republic of South Sudan in developing its capacity to provide security, establish rule of law, and strengthen the security and justice sectors. And now I will introduce you to our next speaker, John Dow, who is the president of the John Dow Foundation, and correct me if I'm mispronouncing your last name. People mispronounce my name all the time. And he will talk to you about the cultural heritage of the people of the Republic of South Sudan. So please welcome John Dow. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. I think you pronounced it very well. And I hope I can take this thing off. But I think if this doesn't incorporate, I will raise my voice. First of all, I want to acknowledge the presence of my friend Margie Bell, Dudeng, these people that I've been working with. Dut is from South Sudan, and we live in Syracuse together. Margie Bell is the chairman of my other organization called the South Sudan Institute, which is the organization that has three missions. One is agriculture, peace and reconciliations, and education, which is including library. We want to build a first library in South Sudan. I don't think there is any, if there is any information of any public library in South Sudan that I know of. We thought we were going to do maybe the first public library in South Sudan. Hope maybe we can achieve our goal, not to be the first, but to do something, a library build a library in our country that can, and of course you know how important is the library. I want to thank you, Mary John, for inviting me, for your great leadership, and with your group, the African Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress, for inviting me and Abi and everyone that is associated with this division. I want to thank you so much for recognizing us. Maybe in other people it would be, library, it's another thing. But I think it's very important to we, the people of South Sudan, because I'm glad that our country, the new country, has been recognized and have their information here, as Deborah just talked about before. So that is really very important to us, and we cannot appreciate you enough for doing that. And I hope maybe the group that is the branch in Cairo or in Egypt can also maybe get in touch with us, and so that we can do something in South Sudan. It could be a new nation, but it's a new nation rich in culture, rich in heritage. Because of the time, I thought I was going to talk a little bit about my work and what I'm doing in South Sudan right now. But it seemed like there's no more time, so I might not really talk more about it. But I want to mention to you that since we came to the United States, since I came to this great nation of America, you know, I never been to school until I was 17 years old. This is when I started to learn A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. Never been to any school of any kind. But because of maybe some people would say is a luck, I would say is, yes, you can make your own luck, but your own luck cannot work if there are no willing partners that can help you realize your goal. The United States did that to us. So when I came to America 11 years ago, I thought, you know, when I am in the United States, you know, I'm already successful. 50% of my success of anything that I can do has already been achieved, just only to be in America. And I thought the other 50, the other half is going to be, you know, it's not going to be as big as starting from nothing. So I work hard, and I built a medical clinic in South Sudan, and that is helping our people right now. We have treated over 72,000 people since 2007 until today. Over 7,000 children have been vaccinated for the first time ever, because there has never been any medical facility in that area. And I've been telling people, Dude and I, we have been vaccinated by God, because I've never been vaccinated at all. So that's the work that is going on with my work. Over 2,000 mothers gave birth at the clinic for the first time. These are the first children that will know their birth date. and so many things. We are treating all of the diseases that can come to our clinic. This is for free. People just come and get treatment for free. With the South Sudan Institute, my other organization that Margie is the chair, I thought it would be very important really to do something, and that is reconciliation. Bring our people together, people in South Sudan too, that they stop killing each other. And very importantly, education. Because of the education that we got is what actually brings us to where we are today. And that's why I am a very person that are fascinated and love libraries, because they contain information. They contain things that can help you. Libraries might be lonely, might be kind of a rusty and a very old thing to other people, but I think to us, we the people in South Sudan, these are very important source of knowledge. Talking about source of knowledge and talking about library. Maybe some of you have been asking, so what did you do? You studied education when you were 17 years old. What about other people? What was the level of education in your country, in your villages? To be honest with you, I have to tell you, there was none. Our older people were our libraries. And that's how we maintain our culture. Our culture is not something that's written in anything. Yes, I know that we were talking about all those publications and release and articles and so on. Yes, but that is something that someone is writing from a remote, coming from Turkey, coming from Egypt, United States, British, and other places. And they write about us. I am not saying that they get it wrong, but what I'm saying is it was something new to us. But before they came to South Sudan, how did we pass information from one person to another? And that is why I'm here today, to really talk to you about a very rudimental information about how did we communicate? How did our new generation that is coming after generation after generation get that information? Where is the history? Written where? And all what I have to say, written in our heart. My father is still alive and he's a lawyer. But guess what? He's never been to any school. He cannot read and write. But is a traditional lawyer. He hear cases that are in a field studies, like someone that need somebody to see kind of a field court, if you will. Our culture is a very, very kind of a very a human-based culture, which means passed from one person to another. How did the farmers in South Sudan know that it's going to rain tomorrow or next year is going to be a drought or a flood? We do not have, at that time we did not, and still now, we do not have meteorologists. Someone that can tell you there will be a hurricane tomorrow. Hurricane Sandy is going to come next weekend or something like that. All this information and how you know it's going to rain tomorrow or next tomorrow or it's going to be a drought is through our elders. How did they do that? Well, the elders will very keen listen to, let's say, insects like crickets. The way it sounds, the way it's makes sound. You know what? It's going to rain next tomorrow. I think you children put things in the rooms because it's going to rain tonight. An adult will say, I have a body ache. Ache here, in the United States we call it arthritis. Ache here and there. They said it's going to rain tonight. And most cases, it's going to rain. So sending it, God telling them, or that situation telling them that is something is going to happen. Either through experience or that's how we learn. So that's how we know. what do you want to grow? What type of food or grains that you want to grow? Because of level of water in this rainy season is going to be high. Why? Because of frog. Frog are making noise in a way that is difficult. Or our people will say when the moon, the new moon, when the moon got out, that the first very new moon, it's not going to rain until the moon got down to be kind of a full shade. It's not going to rain at that time. During rainy season, we know that maybe 90% or 80% is not going to rain. But people will know once the moon is about 15 days, we count our moon or month, as we call moon, when the moon is 15 days. When the moon is half, which means we don't count like a 30. When the moon is out, it's 15 days. When the moon is gone, which means moon is not going to come out until you go to bed. So it's gone, it's taken. They say when the moon is taken, and 2 days before, well, the rain will rain when the moon is taken away 2 days. But when the moon is about to come back, 2 days later, it will rain. So that's how our people learn, it's going to rain or not. We do not have any intellectuals or learn or, knowledge of meteorologists. Naming of the children names. We have names. Names are very important in our culture. In the United States, I learned that, name, yes, very important. But there is someone that named babies in the United States. Most likely could be a woman. Maybe they cooperate with a husband or something like that. But it's not a grandma work. It's not a grandfather work in the United States. At least maybe you tell me. But in South Sudan, it's strictly to either mother and dad. Or, and they come in if your grandma and your grandfather are not there, if they die, for example. The naming now go to your father and your mother. I have a wife, and we cannot name our babies. They're born in the United States here. I have 3 children. But we have to call back home. My father is still alive. My mother is still alive. The baby is being born here. So what is the name? My mother and father would sit down and give me the name. They will not give you the name, although we have a beauty of ultrasound where you see is a boy or a girl. But when you tell them, Baba, it's going to be a girl, so give me the name, it will say, no. We can't give a name to someone that's not been born. How do you know that is going to be a baby girl? So all of this, and so it is something like that. And that's why you see in our culture, it's very important that you don't make a mistake. Well, you make a mistake, but you can't misbehave and so on because you're going to destroy your name. Naming are very important. And so your name is very important. We do not have police to enforce our laws, to enforce the laws that are being made in or passed in the village. No police, no policemen. But a respect became our policeman. You're being a cultured person, that you have a respect for adults, that you have respect for young people, that you have respect for somebody else. Because these things will play into action later when you, let's say, for example, you're going to marry. If I am a young man and I want to get married, what I would do is, I will come with Dude, my friend, and my father and my mom and my uncle, great uncle, will call me, now, John, it's your time to get married. What I will do is, they will say, okay, give us the girls that you've been seeing. What are their names? We will say 5, so and so and so and so. What they will say is, they say, okay, you can go. And they will go through, who are these girls? Who are their mothers? Who are their fathers? Have they done something before in their relationship? I mean, in their family background. Have they killed somebody before? Have they murdered something? Are they witchcraft? Are they very selfish? Do they invite people to come? Are they good people? They will go through that search, that interview and so on, until they find someone, a girl, that doesn't matter whether that's a bad girl, maybe ugly girl, whatever it is. What matters is their background. And in most cases, sometimes they would say, well, we disqualify all of them. They would call me back, no, those girls are not good. Maybe their families are not good. Some until we go back, Dude and I will go back and find other girls until there is a girl that they like. And what we will do, they will go to that family, and the family of the girl will say, okay, so who want to get married? It's John. Okay, and then say, you can go back. We will tell you back, we'll call you back later. And they will go down and say, who is this John? Was he good in his relationship with boys, with other young men, or something like that? Is he a very lazy guy, doesn't like to work? Or is he a heartless person that doesn't have respect or something like that? You can see this kind of a story playing. Later, if I'm a bad guy, I said, you know what? John father and mom, no marriage. So I have to put my act together as I am a good person. I have to work hard so that I can be born again in my culture. So all of this, play in that category. When you travel, you go from one person. If we say, you never know, you may invite angels to your house. And so when there is someone you don't know wandering in the neighborhood or in a cattle camp, Dude and I will actually go and compete over that person. Come and sit with me. Come and stay in my house. Why? Because you never know. It might be angel. And you want to show to that person that you are a great person. That person have to go home. Maybe when I go home later, he will talk about you. Then you're a good person. That they invited me, that they gave me a food they have, anything that is available. They talk to me, they entertain me, they gave me a a very important bed, something like that. We didn't have bed. We just sleep on the ground on a hide of a cow, a skin. So that nice one, that's you're going to use. Until later when you go, every member in the family will walk you out, take you to a distance a little bit, and say bye-bye, so that you are safe. When you go back, when you come back later, you're most likely going to stay with them. It's a culture of respect. It's a culture of resilience. When you have something, you have to share with people. And that's why many people will say, how did you do that when you were 12 years old, separated from your family, and you were on your own? We said, it's a culture. It's a culture that we help each other. We share. We support each other when when someone is down. All of this, and I can talk on and on because of the time, but the question is, how did this pass from one person to another? There was nothing written somewhere in South Sudan, especially in our own culture, but it passed from one person to another. Time, we didn't have time. We would say, we're going to meet later when a shade of a tree is perfectly in the middle or around it, or when it is this way to the west, or when it is, we're going to leave later when a shear comes. Shear mean, in this case, I think I have learned now, shear is either being a planet that come very early in the morning, that come from the east, whatever that you call it, we call shear. When a shear one, when say shear one, which means shear that planet come out, well, that star, big star that from the east come. This is when we're going to leave. There's no time that we're going to leave at 5 or a.m. whatever it is. We're going to leave when that thing comes, or we're going to leave in the second crow of the crow. I mean of the a chicken, when a chicken making so crow, the first crow, second crow, something like that. So that's when we're going to leave. Or we are going to go later when a certain wind come. When a wind come from the east, we call crow. When a wind come, this is exactly the time. Or when, so we know that rain is going to stop because there is a winter feeling is coming. We know here in the United States there is something announced. This is spring is coming, right? There's some bird coming early, and so those are how we pass on our culture, how we pass on our tradition, our heritage. It's something that we are very proud of, and I am very happy that you guys are recognizing it. It is something that, although it is not written, we think that now, because the wave of the lost boys getting education, some now became medical doctors, others are coming to becoming PhD holders, masters, and so on. I think these are going to write a story down. But that the beauty of it is that you pass from one person to another. And that's, we could say, Dad, I think this is your time to go to decide cases. I think it's the right time now. So I will go and see if there are people there. They come under a big tree. There's a community tree. There are no houses. There are no buildings that are belong to the community. Under a tree is where things are decided, is where marriages are taken place. So these are very important in our own life story, in our culture. But to stop, I would want to say, I am very rich in culture. I like where culture is being discussed because I believe, strongly believe, if you don't have culture, you're like a person that doesn't have a land. If you don't have a cultural heritage, your culture is something that ties you down. Your culture is your identity. It is very important that you keep your culture. You can become as educated, and that's what I've been telling South Sudanese. Okay, look, keep your culture. Do not bring to America. Because in our culture, we have other bad practice as well. For example, having more than one wife. Don't do it in America. It's not here. Don't do it anywhere anyway, because here is how bad it is. So do not bring that part of our culture here. But also, do not take other bad practice here in the United States. For example, a boy will run around with a jeans kind of a dropping here. Why do you want to show me your underwear, If you want to be naked, just go naked. You just don't want to show me that. And I've been telling our guys, look, it does not add anything to your image. It's zero. It's nothing. You can't be showing your other thing that nobody want to see. But still, in American culture, there are very good stuff. There are good things that is there for you. So enrich yourself. How important we are, how lucky we are that you have your own culture. And then you have other person's culture. You incorporate. You become acceptable. You will be accepted in the American culture. You will be accepted if you go to South Sudan also. So display that culture whenever you are there. Culture is my image. Culture is what makes me I am. There are some people who say, well, I am educated. No, I really don't like culture. It's very important to have it because it's what makes you who you are. If you don't have one, make one. Because that is so important. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me.
John, I have to bring this mic down. Good afternoon. I'm Marita Harper, the area specialist here at African section that, excuse me. This way. Area specialist here for Sudan, and I have the distinct pleasure today of really sharing with you the actual items of publications that we have on South Sudan that are unique in the fact that we have them here, and you can come here and do research and learn more of the history, the cultural history of South Sudan, and now the Republic of South Sudan. We're here to give you the kind of rich knowledge of the area of South Sudan. And with that, I would invite you to come to the our conference room where they're displayed, and I will talk to you a little bit more about that item. But before we go, if anyone has any questions of our speaker, John Dow, I would like for you to let me know, and John Dow can discuss that. And in doing that, you also are being recorded with that, and you're giving us permission to record your questions and let people know what your interests in about South Sudan. So, do we have any questions for our speaker? John.
I can do it the way I do it.
Okay. All right.
So I wanted to thank you very much on behalf of our division and on behalf of the African section for coming here, for talking to us. It was really wonderful. My question to you is, I have known Dr. Francis Deng for many, many years, and he once told me about the passing on of tradition orally, like poetry, like a story that went from one generation to another. Can you comment on it, on the passing on of the story or the history through memorization of the story?
Yes. What we do is, say for example, my name is called John. The John part of it is when you are baptized, become Christian, then you get John. But you have African name, Dio Deng Lake. My name is Dio Deng, it's my father's Deng, Lake, Deng, Ale, Goy, Ahmed, Kon, Ayuel. I can count up to 12. Do you know when I knew this? When I was maybe 3 or 4. Who did this? Is my mother, is my uncle, is my dad. I know from my father's side to 12. I can count from my mother's side to 12. And that is what people that adult are in your neighborhood or that are your family members, they will tell you. It becomes their job to actually tell you who you are. Who you are is told by grandfathers, grandmothers. They will tell you, here what it is. They don't have any other job. They sit you down. They know that this is a time for you. You can comprehend anything. They sit you down. Who are you? Then you recite it. Here is what we do in our culture. Here is what we do in our clan. They will tell you, we've been fighting with this group. Cows are very important. You must take care of your cows, your goat. This is your relative. You don't get married to 12. From generation 1 to 12. Do not get married. Here are your relatives. They're like this. This neighborhood is like this. We had this. Sometimes we fought with hyenas, or we fought with a devil, whatever it is. And because there are those who are fighting with rain, just rain, and then they start fighting with it. They kind of throwing spears and fighting. All these things, they are imparted in you by the adult, by the grandmother, grandfathers, or uncles. That's how you pass on the oral tradition. And wherever you're going to, for example, you go for fishing, your dad will bring you along. You don't know how to fish because we have a stick, a long stick with a pointed metal, so that you keep just fishing. You can find a fish or whatever it is. Your father will bring you, and then you stand there. You stay outside. You see how you do it. How they do it, that's how later you're going to do it. So it's a culture of involvement. It's a culture of hand-on. They cannot teach you just only sit down and with them. Some part of our story, our culture, is being passed from generation to another by actually getting you doing it, getting you learning it while you're there with them, and also taking you to that thing. For example, they know how to, I was amazed when I heard that in the United States, and of course everywhere, anywhere else, when they slaughtered a cow, they know how to cut. This is steak, this is stew, this is whatever it is. In South Sudan, that's what we did. And so we have to show someone how you cut that. You can cut certain feet of meat, and how you're going to do it better. You know, how you can make rope. You know, a grandmother would sit down with a young girl, tell them how you can weave, how you can make yourself beautiful, how you can start cooking, how you start doing things that is in the kitchen. You know, now my son Lake, who is now 4, start coming to stay with me when uncle, everyone is his uncle. To be honest with you, even an American come to my friend, who is almost my age or something like that. I let my children in the United States call them uncles. But that's how we used to do that. That's my culture. I want them to have that culture and have American culture as well, because that's very, very good to have more. So anybody is your uncle. Anybody is kind of the same age as your mom is your mom as well. You don't call auntie. Well, you're not so auntie, maybe. But it's your mom as well. But they know that they're not really your mother, but that's a honor. You know, by adding dit, D-I-T, into your name, for example, Mary, I would say Mary dit. Mary, and then put D-I-T. Or Bush dit, or Gabriel dit, or Linda dit. So you put that D-I-T, so that is honorable. You can't call, like I can say, Mary Jane. Well, to me here, I feel like I'm not respecting you. I want to say Mary Jane dit, right? So that's how you pass it. Your mother will tell you, your dad, your grandmother, grandfather, uncle, and so on. So it's a culture that is really structured and is expected. You know your role. What are you going to play? What kind of role are you going to play? Get married, bring your wife. Your wife will always come to where the man is, the husband is. And her mother will always come and advise her. My mother will advise her. My dad will advise me to become a good, responsible husband. Who is husband? Husband is the one who did this and that and that. I will always be told. Even the father of my wife will also tell me, here's what a husband do. So it's a culture of togetherness. It's a culture that you can really navigate their life alone. You're not allowed, if you're a boy, you're not allowed to marry from, if you are, let's say, 18 to 25, you cannot get married. The man, maybe from 30 or 28, if that early. But if you're 30 and above, well, you're going to get married, because family is going to be very difficult for you. You're going to cry. Man cannot be allowed to cry. Man cannot be allowed to admit failure. You got to work hard. A man cannot be allowed to eat things like this thing belong to children. For example, when we came to the United States, we couldn't eat cookies. We couldn't eat sweet candies, because that belong to children. A young man, or someone like me, or dude, you can't eat cookies, because these belong to children. Now we eat them. Any other? Yeah.
We have another question.
Okay.
There.
My question, well, it's kind of like 3 questions. The first part is, I saw you in the film that I'm tired of us, and I was wondering, of course, people wanted to know, were people successful in what they were planning to do at the end of the film. But are you still in touch with the 2 other people you came with? The second question is, I know that governments don't agree, but culture usually does. And are there any efforts to work with the National Library of Sudan to kind of maybe replicate some of the cultural materials they have to take to South Sudan? And the third question is, did your parents approve of your wife?
Yes, I think I would like to start with the last one, because yes, I got married in 2006, African way, because I went home. I made money here, take money home, buy cows to pay dowry. What does dowry mean? Maybe it has been taken a very wrong way. Maybe they are right. But here's how we take it, we, the African. Dowry is a part of appreciation. You appreciate mother and the father of a girl. This young girl raised without your responsibility, and they are giving her to you. That is important. Maybe to other people it may be simple, but that is very important. You know, when she was in diapers, another thing, how tough it was, you know, and then they raised that girl. They love her until she become a responsible woman. And then you say, it's my wife. Yeah, you gotta do something that is very appreciative. We, the African, I would say from South Sudan perspective, when I'm getting married, if I was at home, it would be the cows, my father cows, with the one given to my wife's family. So basically, myself and my wife will not do anything at all. The way I look at it in the United States is maybe some other families. The bride and the bridegroom, they are, left with the burden of paying maybe $5,000 or $15,000 or more, right? To buy a gown, to buy all these things. Very expensive. Why do you leave that responsibility to your children? You know? And you say you're not paying dowry. This is dowry. It's a huge dowry, but you displace that from being, it's your responsibility as a dad and a mom from the girl, from the boy's side. It's your responsibility to make sure that your son is not suffering from that burden. That's my perspective. So yes, I ventured into talking about this. Yes, so I went to South Sudan. My father have cows, and then what I met here, we bought cows, and all those belong to my father, and my father was the one giving cow to Martha, my wife, parent. So yes, she was accepted. She's she's a very short woman, but I love her than how her height is. She is very, very wonderful woman, really. And yes, she was accepted, and I was also accepted from their side as well. So it's a two-way street. So yes, that is that. The other second part of yours is that, look, I don't know if there is any library in South Sudan right now. And actually, as Deborah said before, maybe they're working on something. But that's what I said, Mary John, with your group, please help us do something in South Sudan. Build a physical library. That will be our first library. So we can have a heritage library where we can have a thing there. And yes, and I still get in touch with the other boys that you saw in the movie, Daniel and Panther.
Excuse me, tell people who don't know about the movie.
Oh, the movie. Okay. Well, the movie that she asked about or she's talking about, it was produced by Brad Pitt, narrated by Nicole Kidman, and was produced 2006. It is somewhere, everywhere now. I think you go to Netflix, you can order that, or maybe somewhere else, I don't know. National Geographic, I think, yeah, they do. It's a movie about a story, about the South Sudanese story. I happen to be in it with some other guys as well. So if you didn't read it, or watch it, maybe you can find time to. I'm not selling it to you, but if you have time, it's up to you. Or read my book, whatever that. Whenever you are, you have time, you can do that. So that's the movie she's talking about. Within the movie, I think she's talking about, thing I have said in the movie and so on. But you have time, you can watch it. And I think that's what it is. I really love culture, and I always go back to that culture. Yeah, our culture, I love it. Yes?
As you mentioned, most of the documents, the written history of South Sudan has been done by folks other
No.
Or is there a need for some documentation?
Well, it's very important. Nice question. And what I didn't say is that, yes, with the beauty of being passed from one person to another, it was when our country was still stable. Okay? You have grandmother, you have grandfathers, and so on. At this time, grandmothers, grandfathers, most of them died. So they gone with the history with them. Now, we, the young generation now, is struggling with how do you make some other people stumble on want to get married to someone that is related to them, unknowingly, or other thing. So this is a really right time now to actually help us keep our own culture. How do you do that? Help us get this, transcribe it, written somewhere, document it, put away. I heard of what you said before, that is, there are some information rotting, eaten by insects, whatever it is. Maybe in next year or two, it will be gone. Completely, I like the way you described before, being swallowed. Our rich heritage, culture, stories, history, being swallowed in front of us. Can anyone, that's why I was asking Mary, can you guys help us, stop that, waste that is going on there? It's the right time now to record it. It's the right time to actually do it. If there is anything to do with emergency, urgency right now, it is our culture heritage that is going down the drain as we speak. But how do you do that? There is a way. There is still time to record those, to get a place, save them, save our history. And how do you do it? That's what I'm trying to say. How do we do it? Can one help us? Can someone help come up with help somewhere and then save that? That is so important to us.
We have time for one more question, and in here for John, and then we'll go and see the materials that we have that are actually on South Sudan. Some are from South Sudanese who have written publications. Okay.
I'm wondering if there's any oral history recording going on, because it seems to me like that is where you need to start before you lose all those stories, is to record them for posterity. And you're right that with all of our technology, it's not oral history is not going to last very long in any society. That was a question. I'm from the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art, and I've been in Sudan, both in Khartoum and most recently in Juba and in Awil, where I'm working on a girls' education project. But I was wondering about museums in South Sudan. Is there any movement to start museums of artifacts? Because I saw some from South Sudan up in Khartoum, and I'm wondering, are they going to take them back to South Sudan now, or are there others that are being preserved or can be preserved, artifacts for a museum?
We do have, very good question. We do still have so many information is in South Sudan that need to be recorded, that need to be put away, that need to be saved before we go to where it is in northern Sudan, in Khartoum and somewhere else. Maybe those are good, but the urgent right now is to maybe now that we have technology that is so good, we definitely need to maybe get help to help people go down and start recording the adult that is still there, the little bit seniors that is still alive. Start recording that, recording things that are, in most cases maybe when they're gone with them. And so there is really, I think there's needed help. There's a need to help us establish something. Again, that's what I was talking to Mary. Can we do something now in South Sudan, building where we can save those material technology that we can record a thing like, and then we can get things from the north or somewhere else in the UK, the United States, and so on, so that we can save it. So I think, yes, there is really, really need to do that. government is very young, country is really young, and so they have so many, all of the above. They're trying to do this. Which one is number one? Either to feed their people, either to stop them from killing themselves, or maybe go and collect history of the country. And there are no many people that are doing that. And so that's why I'm saying we need help now, so that the government taking care of issues of insecurity, taking care of issues of oils and foods and some other thing. Can someone that is watching far away come and pick what you can do, how you can help us? I can make a list. Here's how we need help, number one up to number whatever it is. Pick what you think you can do, because we need any help you can give. So if there's anyone there that want to help, I think this is the right time to help this division, so that it can be able to establish something in our country. Me too, I just want something being done there now, so that we can have a physical presence there and keep help this nation, better new nation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.